Before I start this morning's talk on Agni Yoga and irritation, I would like to invite our viewers on YouTube to come to Arizona and to visit Prescott, which is where we broadcast from. And if you are here on Sunday mornings, to know that you are most welcome to visit us. We suggest that you drop in about 10:15, and that will give you a chance to go through our bookstore and meet everybody. And then we begin at 10:30 Mountain Standard Time. And you'll be most welcome. And we also serve refreshments after the talks. And the food today looks like we're going to have a lunch. There's so much. Anyway, you're most welcome, and we're very joyful that you are so interested in the teaching that you are watching the YouTube or joining us for the live broadcast. So this morning, Agni Yoga and irritation. I can't even imagine what it is like to live without, on a day-to-day basis, the exposure of irritation. And yet Agni Yoga tells us that it is possible to positively resist irritation. And not only is it possible, it's something that we need to do. If we are unable to positively resist irritation, then it's going to have some pretty serious and negative effects upon our health. So imagine, yourself, the next time you find yourself being exposed to irritation, think about this talk, or go into the teachings of Agni Yoga. You can go to the website, the Agni Yoga website, and do a word search on irritation on the internet, and learn so much about this subject, so that we're building our knowledge, and that knowledge then becomes part of the fabric of our reality, and in that knowledge we're going to increase our awareness of when irritation is in our environment. And when we see irritation coming to us, we're going to stop, not allow it to penetrate into our nervous system, and instead have a positive resistance to it. The teaching says that irritation is a state in which we let our nervous system respond to unpleasant or destructive influences, energies, and impressions. I'm going to reread this because it's so vital to really consider. We can take this sentence into a seed thought and think about it and build upon this significant key thought, so that we really find ourselves taking this next step into more positive psychological health, more positive physical, emotional, mental health. It's so real, but we have to assimilate and create an understanding of what irritation is, so that we know how to resist it in a positive way. So I'm going to read this sentence once again, which is from the teaching. Irritation is a state in which you let your nervous system respond to incoming and unpleasant or destructive influences, energies, or impressions. Destructive influences, energies, or impressions. It is the automatic resistance of our nervous system, or not only the nervous system, but also the etheric and astral and mental bodies to incoming impressions, either positive or negative. Our nervous system and our subtle bodies meaning our etheric body and our astral and mental bodies, they have a natural resistance to all those negative impressions which are harmful to them. Yeah, it's very interesting. When these harmful impressions hit these mechanisms, the mechanisms we call or title the physical, etheric, astral, mental, when these impressions hit these mechanisms, what happens is that they emanate a vaporous element which creates a sphere of protection around them. It's similar to what the white blood cells do to the intruders. So the good news here is that we do have a built-in protection. The mechanisms have a built-in protection through this vaporous element, but also most sources of irritation can be handled through positive and conscious resistance. It must be conscious. It has to be conscious. Now, causes of irritation. This is something we need to be aware of. So I'm going to give you a list. This is not a complete list, but it is a list of the most obvious influences of irritation. The first is a sense of being abused or bullied, or a sense of being deceived. See, a sense of being deceived or exploited. The next is a reaction. This is very powerful. The reaction to things which do not agree with our own way of doing things. This results in resentment. So again, the remedy is to handle such experiences with conscious, positive resistance. Complaining is another cause of irritation. Self-interest and self-satisfaction. Criticism and quarreling. Ingratitude. Demanding and forcing and intolerance are all elements that cause irritation within ourselves and within others. Inferiority complex. Isn't that interesting? That a person who has an inferiority complex can cause irritation in others. Now, if you're a psychologist or a therapist or psychotherapist or probably a psychiatrist, although I'm not so sure about that, or especially if you're an esoteric psychologist and you study a lot about people who have an inferiority complex, you know that the buildup of their defensive mechanism to create a false persona results in creating irritation for others, because the others realize eventually that behind that facade is one who has not yet touched in on their real self, which contacting the real self gives you true self-confidence, which then over time eliminates an inferiority complex. Another source of irritation is impatience and hurry. Impatience and hurry is the opposite of tolerance, understanding, waiting for the right time. When you're impatient, you're out of sync with the rhythm of the heartbeat of the universe, or out of rhythm with your own heartbeat, or you're even out of rhythm with the pulse of, or the impulse of your solar angel that, how can I explain the way that this beautiful solar angel enables our life to realize its purpose? That it is, it's like music, that a particular rhythm goes out, but it's magnetic. And as that magnetic rhythm pulsates out into our aura, it attracts activities and people and gatherings in sync with your life purpose. It brings the right people, the right tests, the right experiences back into your life. But if you're into your life, if you're fighting that natural rhythm of your own heartbeat and the heart impulse of the solar angel, then you're going to fall into impatience and being in a hurry, and that in turn causes irritation within your own human mechanism, affecting your physical etheric body, your astral body, your mental body, and your environment. And the other thing is noise. Noise causes irritation. If you live in an office where there are a lot of electronics, and then a time comes when the electricity goes off, it's shocking, this stillness. Wow, it's like you can almost hardly stand it because your ears are so used to that noise. What do you do with yourself? No computer, no iPad, no electricity, no this or that. What do? It's just pure silence. This is a reminder of the kind of silence that gives way to beautiful music, subjectively, in the higher worlds. When we live in a noisy environment, our whole human mechanism fills with the noise of irritation. And it removes us, it cuts us off from the beauties of sound and color in the subjective worlds. Okay, now, the ancients have warned us not to eat when we're angry or irritated, because the food that we eat will turn into a poison through irritation that causes greater trouble in our system, in our nervous system. So there's a real practical statement that we can, grab onto, that if we find ourselves in irritation, we put ourselves at risk. So don't eat if you're under irritation. Now there's a perfect diet for you right there. We are always advised to pray before we eat, or to keep silence for a few moments and invoke the joy and blessings of the heavenly world. This kind of just one little moment before we eat, this action will prevent the possibility of irritation and bringing irritation into our bodies. So the food will carry the needed energy to the system. So if you are in irritation, the first thing is, don't eat a big meal. Secondly, pray. Bless the food, which is blessing your environment and being grateful for what you have. And then that food will carry the needed energy into your system. So that's the introduction to the talk this morning. Now here is a phrase from the book Heart, which is an Agni Yoga book. This is paragraph 277. It says, "We give our decree against irritation. We give our decree against irritation, but only greatness of heart," and that's a key phrase for the rest of the talk this morning, "only greatness of heart will preserve one from the poison of irritation." So there is a long-term remedy to protect ourselves from the poison of irritation, which is greatness of heart. So I'm going to be talking about the different qualities of a person that has greatness of heart this morning. But this is something that we need to carry with us and use in our day-to-day life. So today's talk is very practical, and it's free. And you don't have to take out insurance in any way for it. It's just a matter of practice. We are told that a person who has a greatness of heart has 3 elements. The first is compassion. The second is forgiveness. And the third is gratitude. So compassion, forgiveness, can't talk this morning. Forgiveness and gratitude. Compassion, forgiveness, and gratitude. These are the 3 elements that qualify a person for greatness of heart. If we have these 3 elements in our nature, it means that we are able to eliminate the effect of the poison of irritation. Now, for me, what I'm sharing this morning is not a philosophy. It's not a theory or a hypothesis. It's very real because I have put it to practice. Sometimes I forget and then I suffer the result. But when I remember or when I'm aware that I'm going to suffer the environment where irritation is poisoning the air, then I prepare myself. And I spend a few minutes in a state of contemplation and remember what is greatness of heart: compassion, forgiveness, and gratitude. And it is like it's like you're waving this magic wand of transforming energy. And pretty soon that individual or that family or that group is injecting the poison of irritation into the environment magically begins to change, magically begins to transform itself. But particularly a one-on-one experience of being with a person who is full of irritation and wants to spew out that poison, not maliciously or knowingly, but just because of their behavior and their own demeanor. They spew out that poison and it comes into your whole aura and nature. But if you have that conscious, positive resistance to it through compassion and forgiveness and gratitude, you see how this is what conscious, positive resistance is all about. And it cannot help but to heal the person who has irritation as well as protect yourself. Our heart is really great if we have compassion. It is great if we have forgiveness. So, for example, can we forgive others? Sure, heck, no problem whatsoever. But you wait until you find yourself in a situation, where you have come under continuous abuse or betrayal, and someone is trying to destroy you or to destroy your family, or to hurt you in any way possible, then can you forgive that person? That's the real test. Can we forgive others, or are we going to instead condemn them? Are we grateful for both the good and bad things that come our way? That's the next challenge. If we cannot, then that poison of irritation is going to come in and affect and collect itself in certain areas of our body and the glands related to those certain areas, and then we begin to have breakdown in our health over a period of time, or if not in this lifetime, in lifetimes to come. But by carrying these elements within our nature, then we can save ourselves from irritation. So to me, this is $1 million lecture. You know, first of all, we're going to save all those medical bills, and we no longer have the budget money to pay medical bills. Secondly, to have freedom from irritation is to enjoy life, really enjoy life, and to be happy and joyful. Okay, poison created by irritation causes the following conditions. The first is that irritation, we're told in the teaching, that irritation accumulates on the nerve channels, the whole nervous system. And wherever this poison accumulates, it creates an illness in the corresponding organs. For example, if it is in the stomach area, our digestive system slowly goes out of order. It's not because that person is eating wrong or right foods. This is important to hear. It is not eating right or wrong foods that's causing the stomach to have digestive problems, but instead it is because that person is always in irritation. So the alternative is to measure the nature of your heart. How much compassion do you have? How much forgiveness do you practice? How much gratitude do you express for everything that's in your life, good and bad? The second is irritation accumulates in our brain centers. When it accumulates in these centers, the person begins to lose clear thinking. We call a person who does not have clear thinking, we call this in various stages. This is a person who just doesn't have a very good memory, or their thinking is cloudy, or dementia has set in, or they have Alzheimer's. So this is what the esoteric teaching and the teaching of Agni Yoga opens the book of knowledge up to us to say, look, if you want to prevent dementia, if you want to prevent Alzheimer's, if you want to prevent poor memory, if you want to prevent having a cloudy mind and losing your thinking process, then begin to create an environment where there is conscious, positive resistance to irritation. Clear thinking is thinking that is not one-sided. Clear thinking is thinking that is not one-sided. If you're a student of the Agni Yoga teaching, you're going to know that means the practice of synthetic thinking. Or we live in this Ray 2 solar system, which is love wisdom. And one of the beauties of a person whose soul is Ray 2 is they learn how to think from different points of view. Then the next step is they take those points of view and create a synthesis from them. That then creates clear thinking. If the poison of irritation accumulates in our brain, then the teaching says we become crooked in all of our thinking. We deceive people, we manipulate people, we exploit people, we take advantage of others until we build a karma that turns against us. The life will turn against us if we participate or engage in activities of manipulation, of exploitation, of taking advantage of others. And if we engage in these three kinds of behaviors, life builds a karma and turns against us. Number 3, Master Moria says that cancer is the result of irritation. So when we see that irritation is so rampant all over the world, we could now see that irritation is a contagious disease. And this is why cancer is on the increase. People these days just expect that they're either going to die of heart disease or cancer. That's just what they think. How many people do you know just beautifully die in their sleep because of old age? Very few people these days. So today, with this talk and this knowledge and this information, this is truly the day of the rest of our lives where we are going to be without irritation. We're going to have a conscious resistance to irritation, positive resistance to irritation, because we're going to practice the greatness of heart. Tumors are caused by the poison of irritation, which is accumulated somewhere in the body and wants to express itself in the physical body. Now, this gives us a little clue that because I'm sorry, I want to repeat this because I think it's so incredible, this little clue that tumors, when they want to express themselves in the physical body, then inject poison, the poison of irritation, into that body. The word expression is what's so amazing. It's telling us that a tumor is a live entity. It's a live entity. So we then need to, if you're a healer, and understand what this is all about, we need to learn how to send love energy and compassion and forgiveness and gratitude to that growing tumor, to dissipate it, transform it. Number 4, irritation also creates wrong human relations. It creates gossip. Irritation creates gossip and slander and malice and so on. It destroys our relationship with our higher self. When the relationship between ourself and our higher self is cut, then we become a materialist. That means we worship the body, we worship objects, and we worship money. So, to overcome irritation, Master M says, practice greatness of heart. So we must cultivate these three virtues and put them into practice: compassion, forgiveness, and gratitude. Now, compassion is a deep, deep loving. Rumi said, I just found this beautiful quote this week by Rumi. Of course, it's just so perfect, for today's talk. These things happen, and I get so joy-filled with it. This is what Rumi is quoted as having said: your task is not to seek for love. Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all those barriers within yourself that we have built against it. What Rumi is telling us is very valid. If we want to carry the element of compassion in our nature, we must first find all the barriers within ourselves that we have built up against it. Compassion we could define compassion as a deep identification with the pains and suffering of people and trying to meet their needs without expectation of due reward. This is very important to develop. Forgiveness. To what degree can we forgive? People asked Christ, if my brother does wrong acts against me, how many times should I forgive him? Are 7 times enough? I know we all have heard this. Christ replied, 70 times 7 is not enough. This depth of forgiveness eradicates the results of irritation. So now there is a secret code here, which is this. When the teaching tells us to practice forgiveness, the primary reason was to make people healthy and happy and prosperous. Look how beautiful this is. When somebody comes up to you, particularly if you're a counselor, and they say, you cannot possibly ask me to forgive that person who is trying to destroy my life. Well, yes, we can if we understand the secret code of forgiveness, which is to be healthy and happy and prosperous. So why empower the person who is trying to destroy you? So let's empower ourselves and the destructive influence by forgiveness. The great ones have given us these codes, the codes of forgiveness and compassion as well as gratitude. Gratitude has the highest healing power. For example, you are angry with someone because he is seeing you are doing wrong things because of your vanity and ego. So what do we do if we see these things, if we observe these things? Well, what we're going to do is increase gratitude. In this way, you say, well, this person has done a lot of good for me. A lot of good for me. So even though they're doing wrong now because of their vanity and ego, our response, this is conscious positive resistance, is by saying, wow, but look at all the good that they have done for me, or the good they've done for my family. You see how that is healing us? This is why the power of gratitude is the highest healing power besides love. When gratitude increases in our heart, the irritation caused by our vanity and ego and hatred and fear will immediately start melting away. When you discipline yourself with the teaching, it leads you into health and happiness. I had a conversation with a teacher yesterday who is the head of a university, Wisdom University, esoteric university, and he said the only time he will accept a student is if they promise him that they will let him put them through purification, intense purification disciplines. And then he says he doesn't have any students. Well, it's scary when somebody is saying, you have to go through purification as a discipline to study the wisdom teaching. We're going to run like crazy, away from such a person. But he's on the right track. The process of purification. The wrong track is the application. You can't force anybody to do anything that's not in their constitution, they're not ready and open to engage in. A great sage says that the teaching is an empty voice if there is no unity. I know people who listen to our lectures and then the next minute they fight with their co-workers. I don't understand it. It's like, why do they come to the lectures? Why do they come to the teachings? Why do they study the teaching if when they close that chapter or close the book or stand up from their chair and walk into the world after a class, that they immediately begin to fight with their co-workers? I just don't understand it. See, it's like the teaching for them is like oil and water. Part of them is drawn to the teaching, but for the wrong reason. The teaching is evolutionary. Anger and hatred and malice and fear is involutionary. Fighting is involutionary. Fighting with our co-workers, our sacred co-workers, is involutionary. If a person understands the teaching, the first sign will be the manifestation of unity. Unity is cooperation. Unity is cooperation. If you are not cooperating with each other, then there is no teaching for you. If there is no cooperation, there is no teaching and there is no unity. When there is no unity, there is decay and only disintegration. The teaching is life. So if you can define the teaching in a very simple way as the teaching is life, then you can understand what the teaching says, that if there is no cooperation, there is no teaching. Because cooperation is life. Teaching is life. The opposite of life is decay and disintegration. Some people are very intelligent, but they lead people into disunity, and we have to be aware of that and be resistant, consciously, positively resistant to those intelligent human beings that try to lead us into disunity. For example, if you have a problem with your wife or husband, these are the best people to separate you because you're vulnerable to them. You love them and you believe them. And they will very cunningly or intelligently lead you into disunity. They do not have to say a lot of bad things. Instead, they drop only a few drops of poison, which creates cleavages. I know a situation with a young woman who is very mentally disturbed, the wife of, 3 beautiful children. And just a few drops of poison that she planted in the minds of her children and her husband divided that entire family from all of their families. Their in-laws and their ex-laws. And now they're isolated. They're by themselves. That's how strong poison is. So do not go to those people who sow cleavages in your group, or your family, or in your church, or in your country. It is very important to see these things. If somebody comes to you and they are just putting little doses, little drops of poison against a sacred co-worker, against your spouse, against your children, you walk away from that person, because they're sowing seeds of disunity, and it will be harmful to your future. Respect. Respect is another sign that we understand the teaching and that we're living the teaching. Respect for each other. Respect means saying, regardless of what you are, I respect your existence, but I don't tolerate your stupidities. The third is assistance to those who are dedicated to doing good things. If your spouse is doing something good, assist that person in their endeavor. For example, if your wife is giving $1 million for philanthropic work, do not stop her. Assist her. Be united in your visions, in your plans, in your actions. The fourth sign is unity. The fifth is harmony. The book Heart says in paragraph 368, to the rejoicing of the enemies, the petty irritation is turned into a whirlwind. I know many people like this. They do small actions that irritate us, and then say, but I didn't do anything. That's your imagination. I didn't do anything. This irritation turns into a whirlpool in the space. Enemies rejoice at this because it means what? They were able to irritate us. And let me close with this. Those who create conscious irritation are the enemies who are creating such a poison within us and then rejoice that we were irritated. What ammunition can we use to stand against such attacks? Greatness of heart. Greatness of heart. Don't forget this. Greatness of heart. For example, you might say, well, I forgive them, and I'm also grateful to them for a few things. By doing this, you feel one with others. Instead of being irritated and killing yourself by creating a poisonous atmosphere around you, just let the irritation go. Just let it go. And then there's also a little remedy if you want to try this. We're told that wormwood oil is a terrific element to protect us against irritation. Wormwood oil you can find, I'm sorry, I didn't mean this to be an advertisement, but you can order wormwood oil on our online bookstore. It has to be a pure essence, and we're very careful with our oils to make sure they're the purest of pure that you can get. And then you take that wormwood oil and you can put it on cotton ball. You can put it in your pocket. You can put it in your purse. You can put it inside your iPad cover. If you're going to be around somebody that you know is going to start injecting the poison of irritation, into your nature, it will repel it. Okay? Okay, that's it.